welcome back to the Whatnauts Pilots Club, a podcast all about the first episodes of television shows and the many reasons why they may or may not be worth a watch. This is a Patreon first podcast, meaning we release these episodes on our Patreon at patreon.com/the Whatnauts. First, where they remain exclusive for 2 whole years before they hit a free feed. So if you are a Patreon supporter, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We love you all. And if you are checking this out on the free feed, just know that there is plenty more for you to check out if you go support us over on Patreon, the $3 tier and above. So there you go. Let's see. This month, Melissa, you brought Phineas and Ferb. Tell me about it.
This is a personal favorite of mine, even though I was born in 1990 and the show premiered in 2007. There was a time in college, I went to college for writing. I thought it might be fun to be a kids' TV writer, and I just generally needed cartoon comfort food. I watched a lot of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and Disney Channel. And this was the one newer show that I got really into. I still have a major soft spot in my heart for Phineas and Ferb.
Cool.
It's so sharply written. It's really creative. It's really funny. And it's got a really interesting thing it does with its pilot that I wanted to bring here.
Yeah, I was surprised when you told me about it, because oftentimes, we'll look at a pilot because, I don't know, maybe the show never made it to a full season, or it did and only lasted one season, or who knows what. But you said that they redid their pilot as the finale of season 2.
Yes.
Which I thought was fascinating. And on top of that, not only did they redo it, they made it a musical.
Yes. The TV show Phineas and Ferb is about these 2 little boys, they're stepbrothers, Phineas and Ferb. It's their summer vacation. And every day they want to really make the most of the day. They're little inventors, and they're always building something. And so the pilot episode of the show is they build a roller coaster. The episode's just called Rollercoaster, and that's what they do. And then the show evolved so much from that, particularly in that it started adding a musical number to every episode. Every episode in some way had some sort of original song for it. A lot of these were actually very good. And the show had a big musical influence on it. Lots of like big Broadway style
cool
song and dance numbers. Yeah, and then at the end of season 2, which is like episode 39 or something, because animated series have such long episode runs, they're like, let's do the pilot again with all of the new stuff that we've added to the show since then. And the show has always been very self-aware. And in this episode, the kids are like, remember the first day of summer when we built that roller coaster? Let's build a roller coaster again, but now as a musical. And just all the same things happen again, and characters are like, didn't we do this before?
Yeah, it's interesting. So this is a show that I was always aware of, but never watched. So I watched it for the first time for this. But I was unsure of what to expect, knowing that they were going to redo it. Because I've watched certain shows where, even though you don't necessarily realize it while watching it, maybe the art style improves, or like obviously they have a bigger budget, or even from a pilot episode to the actual thing. Like we've seen, you've seen that happen too, where it's like, oh, your budget increases, so now it looks slightly differently. I don't know if it really looked all that different.
Not really.
This feels like a show that was animated on the computer, so they probably kept the same like character models and stuff like that. I was not sure what to expect though. Of like, will the art style change slightly?
No.
Will I notice different things?
Although
but no,
they do make a joke
really.
about, they fill out the cast of the surrounding neighborhood kids, and Rollercoaster the musical does have a joke where the sometimes bully, sometimes wise friend Buford knocks a bunch of anonymous background characters out of the way. Like, I'm on it this time. I'm
Yeah.
going to be in that. They fill out the second time they do it. They're like, let's put our actual characters in the next couple rows of the next couple rows of the roller coaster instead of just generic background kids who never became anything but generic background kids.
Right. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I like that they wanted to take a second stab at this with the new things that their show kind of became known for. Like you said, I think that's really cool. It to me just kind of represents this celebration of the joy of making a show like that, right? Like,
Yes.
this is not a narrative end cap to the season. It just really is. You know what? Why not? Let's just do it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Like, it really makes it seem like the people working on this show had a lot of fun and had a lot of love for what they were making, and was just like, hey, I think we could do that first one a little better.
Yeah. I saw somebody describe the show once as being like a kid repeatedly dumping out the same box of Legos and asking, what
Mm,
new thing can I build with it this time? The show
right,
was
yeah.
very formulaic. The formula established in the first episode is pretty much how every episode goes. Mom leaves. The boys get up to something. Candice is like, I'm going to tell mom you're up to this. And then Perry the platypus goes and fights Dr. Doofenshmirtz. The two, Dr. Doofenshmirtz's invention and Phineas and Ferb's inventions inadvertently cross at some point, cancel each other out. The day is reset to the status quo by the afternoon when mom gets home. Every episode
Great.
pretty much goes like that, but they take all these modular little pieces and really play with them and see how far they can stretch them and how preposterous things can be and how it becomes really self-referential and just spirals in and around itself.
Mhm.
Like in this second episode that we watched, they include this running joke that they started doing where there's like some farm couple and the wife's always like their car will be stuck and it'll be like, we need a tire. And the wife's like, what do you think? A tire is just going to fall out of the sky? And then the thing falls out of the sky because it had something to do with one of the other main A-plot adventures that week.
Yeah.
And so they have these guys in Rollercoaster the musical. And she's like, why? What do you think? $1 million is just going to fall from the sky? And the
That's
husband's
not
like,
how it
"Honey,
works.
honey, it doesn't work like that." Like, it has this weird, it establishes its own weird like repetition and rules and story math for how it goes. And there is so much love behind it. You're right. Like, it's how many times can we do the same thing and find a new way to do it differently each time? It's not repetitive out of laziness. It's repetitive out of a creative exercise.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes people will you'll hear artists be like, hey, I actually kind of work better under deadlines and stuff like that because I'm given a limitation, and working within stuff like that just helps to be creative. And the repetition on top of that too can just help. Like, how can we just turn the dial a little bit, just change this one thing from, I think it was in the musical version when the platypus guy then like almost runs into another secret agent raccoon, which I don't think was in the first one.
Oh yeah. So there's Perry the platypus works for AUCA, Organization Without a Cool Acronym. And he's one of a number of other animals in little secret agent fedoras who fight another local mad scientist.
Right. Yeah. That's fantastic. But I don't think we saw the raccoon in that first one. And so to just see him like about to like cross the intersection of these like pneumatic underground tube like things, but then has to stop while he waits for the raccoon to go by. Like, I like details like that, where it's like, how can we take what you already know and just change it up ever so slightly?
There's
So yeah,
an
it was fun.
episode where they get up to some sort of time travel hijinks, and like an adult Candice comes back from the future to show Candice, no, you things must go this way. They cannot go any differently. And they go back to the first episode. And so in
Mm.
Rollercoaster the musical, you see in the background when like Candice and her mom are in the grocery store parking lot,
There's
you
like
can
two
see
people
adult
back behind
Candice.
there.
Yep.
I noticed that, and
Yes. That's a
I didn't
callback
know
to
what that
another
was.
episode that calls back to the pilot. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
It's a recursive loop.
that's cool. I like that. um, yeah, that's a lot of fun. I'm a big time travel fan, so now I'm excited to go back and watch that one now. Um, but yeah, like I don't like I felt that like the songs were all fantastic.
Yeah.
Even with the songs taking up more time, it felt like they didn't really. So the original pilot was actually like two stories. They'd had the roller coaster, and then there was a part two, which I'll be honest, I kind of forgot what
I
was in the part two of that one.
I skipped it for this one. It was not part of the exercise. We're watching Rollercoaster and Rollercoaster the musical.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it's like the episode is like two 15-minute skits instead, or like two 10-minute long skits. But even when Roller Coaster the musical is a full 20 minutes, it doesn't feel like they had to cut things out to put the songs in. They really did have time to pad everything out with these songs. So they do a wonderful job. The songs feel like they fit. They also don't feel like they throw the timing of everything off either.
Yeah.
Right. It still had great pacing. I like the introduction of the joke, who's the one guy who's just like, my life is in these four walls, and then he always gets cut off.
Classic.
Yeah, great stuff. I had a great time with this.
I'm happy you did. Like I said, it's a show I really love. It's very funny. I think it takes a little while to really get its rhythm going, but by the end, it finished. I think they finished when they wanted to finish. They're like, let's end on a high note. So like the later seasons are all very good. I think it's supposed to come back. It did have like a Disney Plus original movie in like 2020. And then I think they're going to do more new episodes. So it is something they've come back to.
Gotcha.
But what is there right now, I think, is a lot of fun. I really recommend it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the like narrative drama of your higher end cartoons like a Gravity Falls.
Right.
It isn't the prestige drama of a Gravity Falls, but it is a very, very good comedy.
Yeah. I think something else that it made me think of too was also just the cartoons that we were watching when we were younger too, right? Like your Fairly Odd Parents, or even your like Ed and Eddie's, right? I felt like this is a good not twist, but a good version of like the parents aren't there, or the parents can't see the magic. Like it is like, no, the parent is there. They seem to be a good parent, but just never sees the invention, or like never sees the big wacky thing that's happening. And again, it's not a twist on the parent isn't there, but it feels like it's in that same kind of wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
And I thought this was a good example of that, of just like the mom just like, no, they're just gonna be sitting there under the tree like they always are, like they don't do anything, you know.
Just like, oh yeah, they're little inventors. They love to build with like Tinker toys and blocks. She's like
Lincoln Logs,
right? She thinks they are very smart kids, and she thinks they're doing average smart kid stuff, realistic, real world smart kid stuff. And Candice is like, no, Mom, you don't understand. They went to the moon today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also it's a good example of the sitcom, like every episode we restart or like reset everything too, right? I even think them taking on this idea of basically this all takes place during summer
Yes.
break. And every day they invent something new or have to figure out what to do to spend their time. Like I remember when I was younger, not only would I have like sleepovers with some of my friends and stuff like that, but sometimes we'd have like sleepovers where like they'd come and they'd stay like the week or like they'd stay for like 3 or 4 days, right? And we just kind of like we'd get tired of playing Super Smash Bros on the N64, so we'd have to go figure out what else to do. I don't know, can we make a movie in the backyard? Yeah, I can get my mom's like tape recorder or something. We'd play with our Dragon Ball Z action figures or something. But like that was the thing of you just had to figure out what to do for hours on end. And when you're a kid, it feels like forever, right? And that's like that's exactly what their theme song, their title sequence. Mom, they're making a title sequence. Also is just that's what it's all about. Of what just like what do we have to do with our time? I don't know. You want to make a roller coaster? Sure, let's do it.
And the thesis of the show of our main characters is carpe diem, seize the day, do the most every day that you can. And I really like that these kids are so positive. Like you brought up Ed, Edd and Eddy, which is a show I loved when I was a kid.
All about you'd also think of like though, right?
Right, like Ed, Edd and Eddy, they're like it's like a dumb weirdo, a like little know-it-all nerd, and like a guy who's always got to get rich quick.
Your local con artist, yeah.
Right, they're not particularly sweet characters. Or like Dexter's Lab. Dexter's mean to Dee Dee and most other people. Phineas and Ferb are very optimistic, friendly. They love Candice.
Sure,
they have no animosity to Candice, and Candice does genuinely love her little brothers, but she just, it's like a sense of fairness and justice that she's like, they did something. Mom didn't say they could do it. Mom has to know what they're doing. She's like, why does nobody believe me? Why does nobody see what I'm seeing? Like what she says is bust. She's like, I'm going to bust you. I'm going to bust you to Mom.
Right.
But she never really wants them to get in trouble or anything. She just wants like recognition.
It's both like recognition, but I think recognition from the mom as being responsible. Because she feels like the young teenager who's like, no, I'm an adult now. I'm not a child. Like I can, you can leave me by myself and I'll be okay. Right? Like you can go have a date night with Dad. I'll be here. I'll make my own dinner. I know how to heat up a pizza. Right?
Right. The show always did a good job with Candice she's right around like 14 or 15. She's not driving yet. Her domain really is her household. And this is how she proves herself. By being responsible and looking after and having control over her little brothers.
But then there's also this sense of like what any person would do. If you see something ridiculous, if you see something wild, you just kind of have to like reach back and be like, does someone else see this? Like, please, Mom, anyone, neighbor, do you see this? And so it's a good mix of that like bewilderment and then also, Mom, I'm being responsible. Look.
Yeah.
So
and then you also have Perry the platypus, who nobody in the family recognizes. Sometimes they're like, oh, where did Perry go? Oh, Perry's back. He's just a platypus. He doesn't do much. And he has this whole secret other life, which is such a bizarre take on this show. To go back to Dexter's Lab, you would have the other stories in an episode of Dexter's Lab that weren't related. You'd have Dial M for Monkey. But this show is like, no, what if Dexter did have a pet monkey and the pet monkey really did fight crime and that is the same story as Dexter building something? This isn't we come from an era of shows where there's different segments that make up the half hour and they're not related and they can be wildly different. And Phineas and Ferb is like, we have that and that is all one world and it has a real set of consequences. The secret agent plot and the kids building something plot are one and they intersect and they overlap and there are ripple effects.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I like him. I like Perry the Platypus. Did you ever play I know you're not much of a video game player, but like maybe you saw one of your brothers playing the humongous games like Putt Putt or Freddy Fish, Spy Fox. That's what Perry the Platypus reminds me of. He reminds me of one of those characters.
You've got a good point. Those are games that I've come to... I did not have those when I was a kid, but I've kind of recognized them as an adult just by seeing people play them on YouTube.
Sure,
like this was a major part of everybody else's childhood that I didn't have. I had whatever the like bulk discount. My dad bought 10 of them for $30 at Sam's Club version of Humongous Entertainment was. I had some B-list version of Humongous Entertainment growing up. We don't have fruit. We have Marshmallow Mateys, and we have this. We don't have
ginormous entertainment. Yeah,
exactly. But I get what you're talking about. Perry does fit right in with that. He never says anything. He communicates entirely with his eyes, with his face. One of the best parts of Rollercoaster the musical is when Dr. Doofenshmirtz goes into his musical number and he tears off his clothes and he's wearing this like torn punk rock half shirt and there's a cut back to Perry with just his eyes biker,
wide. Like 60s like Euro biker punk.
Yes.
Weird.
Which makes sense. He's from the ambiguous, vague European country of Gimmelstump. Every episode he builds something and he has a tragic backstory, including details like neither of his parents showed up for his birth. He was raised by ocelots. He had to spend time as a living garden gnome. His only friend when he was a kid was a balloon named Balloony, and then Balloony floated away.
Oh, no. Yeah, I had a good time with this. There's lots of joy in this one.
There is.
And, that I think can at least go a long way for me, just your average consumer of a television show. I want to enjoy my time watching your show, even if it is like a dark, gritty crime show or like stuff like that. Like I want to have a good time, and sometimes shows where you just don't have a good time for whatever reason that is. Just makes it not fun to watch, right? Like I might move on to something else. But
yeah, it's got a lot of warmth, a lot of joy. It's very sweet. I was talking to a coworker of mine who's got 2 little kids, and he's like, the number one thing that concerns me the most when I'm picking out kids' entertainment is like sass and attitude and back talk. Because if my kids absorb too much of that, it becomes such a pain for them to get in those modes. And I like that Phineas and Ferb are just good, and all their friends. I mentioned Buford, who's like the bully archetype, but he's almost like a kid who's so smart, he's aware that he is the bully archetype, and he has to do things that make him appear to be a bully because that is the role he plays, whereas actually he's very intelligent and sensitive.
Interesting.
Like he's the roughest character we have on hand is Buford. All the kids are very nice.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. I don't have anything else to say on Phineas and Ferb. Did we miss something that you wanted to?
I want to. Oh, I could talk for ages about this. It's got so many weird little details and weird little episodes. But I Googled it just to double check what year it came out. And the little like Google sidebar where it tells you information that it pulls off of sites, and it says first episode date, program creators, theme song, scientist, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Got to give you the credits of who its scientist is, same as with its creators. and genre: science fantasy, surreal comedy, and musical.
Yeah, great.
To name them, the program creators are Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh, who did have quite they worked on a lot of shows when we were kids. They worked on Rocco. They worked on
Good stuff. Yeah.
Do you know the episode of Family Guy where Peter Griffin? Why'd I say his last name? There's not another Peter.
I don't know. I haven't seen all of Family Guy. Maybe there is a second Peter.
The episode of Family Guy where Family Guy star Peter Griffin, where he becomes a football player and his end zone touchdown songs.
One. Yeah.
Dan Povenmire directed the Shapoopy episode of Family Guy.
Oh, there you go.
So that's
Shapoopy.
where the show just stops and does a full Broadway musical for 3 minutes.
That makes sense
the energy
now.
coming into Phineas and Ferb.
That makes sense now. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. That's fun stuff. Melissa, next month, I have something that when I watched this immediately, I was like, oh, this is my next thing. I have to. And I started watching this show immediately after I had already pitched Bosch for last episode. It was like two days after we had recorded that pilot club. I started to watch this show, and I was like, I need to watch this with Melissa. This is going to be a blast. I want us to watch the pilot episode of the Amazon Prime television show Homecoming, which is based off of a podcast of the same name. The podcast was produced by Gimlet Media, and the entire first season of the show was directed by Sam Esmail, Mr. Robot,
there goes
which
the
we
dynamite.
both like. Yeah.
You have pitched this before. I think I tried the first episode of the audio drama because it was one of the early. Audio fiction is an emerging medium, and celebrities can do it.
Yes, Oscar Isaac was in the audio drama of this one. I have not listened to the podcast. So I don't know how closely the television series follows along. But I have to say the first season of this show is absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. And I think with our love for Mr. Robot and Sam Esmail's directing style, this is a really interesting watch. The show itself stars Julia Roberts, Bobby Cannavale, Stephen James, Shea Wiggum, Sissy Spacek is in the show. Hong Chow is in this. Janelle Monáe is in season 2 of this show.
That's a lot of people.
There's a lot of really interesting people. Another reason why I wanted to put this out there, because if you do end up continuing with this show, I don't remember if he's in the pilot episode, but Jeremy Allen White is in this. Carmen Berzado himself is in this. I think this was right before he went to go do the Bear. So it's neat to see him as a side character in this too. So pretty star-studded cast. I have to say, I absolutely love this. Have you by chance gone to go see Kinds of Kindness yet?
That's what I was doing this morning.
Some similar stuff in the directing style of this show. It will cut to black and white or different sizes of it's not 16:9, it's now 4:3. Yeah, all sorts of interesting stuff in this. So I think we will have a great time talking about this. Homecoming, available on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend it. I really loved season 1. I don't think season 2 was necessary. I thought it was okay. It wasn't bad. It certainly added certain things, but did not have that same X factor that season 1 did. So good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. So that's what we will do for this.
Forward to it.
This next month. Yeah, I cannot wait to talk about this one. So there you go. Melissa, do you want to let everyone know where they can contact you if they would like to get in contact with you?
Email me at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com.
There you go. Good stuff. Yeah, if you guys want to get in touch with me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Threads. If you'd like to stay up to date with all the stuff we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts official on Threads as well. Obviously, we did not have a video version of the podcast this week, but plenty more stuff up on our YouTube channel. But yeah, this has been number 30 of the Pilots Club. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.